Bodybuilders from the silver and the golden era, so from like 1940s to like 1980s, looked more aesthetically pleasing than bodybuilders from the 1990s and onwards. But why is that, and what does that even mean? So like if we look at guys like Steve Reeves, Reg Park from like the older 1940s, 1950s, and then we look at guys later on like in the golden era like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Mike Mentzer. There's something about when we look at these, they just look more not as impressive as the guys from later on, but they just look more natural. Even though guys like Arnold and Mike Mentzer and like the 70s and 60s onwards weren't like literally natural, they were on steroids. But there's something that looked more natural about them. And so when we look at guys from the 1990s onwards, like so once the mass monsters like Dorian Yates and Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman come in, and even today like modern guys like C-Bomb and Sam Sulik, they look more impressive, but they just look so massive. They don't look as aesthetic. And the reason for that, there's a few reasons. First, in the main competitive realm, it's the tanning and it's the body fat. Back then, if you look at the older guys, they got natural suntans. They didn't get like these spray tans that look really fake and weird. In my opinion, and I think in most people's opinion, the spray tans don't look as good as the natural suntans. But also the body fat. The guys today are super, super shredded, like single digit body fat. They have to completely dehydrate themselves, and everyone describes it as miserable. When as the guys back then, they were lean. You can see their abs, you can see their muscle definition, but they weren't shredded to the absolute gills, and it was actually healthier for them, and they actually lived longer. But that's besides the point because they also didn't have steroids. But the main point is for competitive bodybuilders, that's why those older guys do look better. But there's also a few more reasons that actually applies to guys like normal guys that just go to the gym that don't plan on competing, that just want to lift weights to look good. And that's aesthetic bodybuilding and the difference between aesthetic bodybuilding and modern competitive bodybuilding, which is what most guys do. Most guys want to go into the gym because they want to look good, to be more attractive to girls, and just to feel more confident with their shirt off and to just look more impressive. Problem is, most modern guys take fitness advice from the guys that are on steroids that are trying to like compete into modern bodybuilding and end up building this physique where they go and say shit like, "Oh, I went to the gym to get compliments from girls, but now I only get compliments from guys." That's just so lame. And so that's where the difference between aesthetic bodybuilding and the traditional competitive bodybuilding is. Well, actually, technically, aesthetic bodybuilding is more traditional, but the point is, you look at guys that are competing today and the guys that go to the gym today. I notice there's two muscles that they always have that are way more overdeveloped than they should be, and they just don't look as more like, honestly, no homo, but like as attractive as the older bodybuilders or aesthetic bodybuilders do, and that's the front deltoid and the tricep. So when you see guys with, I mean, honestly, it's mostly the entire shoulder altogether. Like guys today have just way bigger shoulders than like Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't have huge shoulders. Like Steve Reeves didn't have huge shoulders. Today, guys have massive, like almost like cartoon like shoulders, but especially the front part of the shoulder, because you might hear about it if you in like familiar with bodybuilding, that or it's like weightlifting in general, is that like, oh, you shouldn't really be hitting like front deltoid exercises like front raises and stuff like that because it already gets targeted from like incline press and just regular pressing motions, and it just gets, you don't have to target it, but guys target it, and that's the reason why they have these very large stiff shoulders. Like Sam Sulek, like even if he's incredibly like mobile and athletic because he can, like, he was a diver and you can see him like do flips and stuff like that, but like sometimes he just looks really stiff. He doesn't look as aesthetic. Something like when you see him, like, whoa, that guy's huge, and like, yeah, it's impressive. It's like not a diss to any of these like competitive bodybuilders or anything, but like you see him and it's just like that guy just looks like yoked. Which obviously we as aesthetic bodybuilders we want to look big, we want to look good in t-shirts, but we don't want that overdeveloped front shoulder and just shoulders in general that makes the frame just look so like stiff. Because older bodybuilding used to focus more like on health and mobility and fitness, and so guys were actually able to do more like athletic stuff. And like, again, I'm not dissing Sam Sulek or anything like that because he's obviously athletic, but the look literally looked more sleeker and athletic, and that's why guys just didn't have huge overdeveloped shoulders. And the second muscle that I say is overdeveloped today by modern bodybuilding is the triceps. We want, of course, to build big triceps, but we don't want the triceps to be so much bigger than the biceps and the rest of the arm. Because what happens when these guys have big triceps, it kind of has a similar effect that the overdeveloped front delt has or the overdeveloped shoulder has, where it just makes your arms look like stiff. You look like an action figure. And of course, all this is great if you're getting on stage and your primary focus is building as much muscle as you possibly can and looking as impressive as you can to judges and winning. But like I said, most guys aren't in the gym to do that. Most guys are into the gym for actual aesthetic bodybuilding, but they don't do it. They don't know that, so they're not doing it right. So when you actually train your arms, you don't want your triceps to be that huge. Like all you really need for triceps are like the tricep push downs and some dips. Because of course your triceps, like the front shoulder and stuff like that, actually already get enough activation from like a bench press motion. So all you really need for the triceps is some press, like some push downs and some dips. You really don't need much more. Like you don't need a whole tricep day. You don't need like 50 sets for triceps. And so what happens, like I said, similar to the shoulder, is that guys just walk around with these big, massive triceps when it just doesn't look right. It just looks very stiff. And so those are the reasons why these modern bodybuilders look more just stiff and massive and not as aesthetically pleasing as compared to older bodybuilders and the more aesthetic bodybuilding. And so to get into this whole point of what is aesthetic bodybuilding as compared to all this modern bodybuilding that I keep saying, aesthetic bodybuilding is bodybuilding that completely focus on just for mostly for normal guys that don't want to compete, that don't want to focus on building as much mass as they possibly can. Of course, stay completely natural, and they don't want to get shredded to the gills and take spray tans, which most guys aren't even taking spray tan anyways. But still, they just want to look like a natural. Like they just want to take off their shirt at the beach and look good. And aesthetic bodybuilding focuses on that. Aesthetic bodybuilding focuses on the aesthetic muscles and building a physique that is more tailored to the female gaze than the male gaze. And I go way more into that into my program. It's top link in the description. That is the aesthetic bodybuilding community. I have a program that goes full in depth on what the aesthetic body is, what the aesthetic body isn't, diet, recovery, exactly which exercise you should do, how many you should, or how much you should do with volume and intensity and all that. I go completely in depth in my community in my program.